I spoke to the best non-dual teacher in the world, Fred Davis. Now, if you don't know who Fred Davis is, he wrote the book called The Book of Undoing. It's super famous in the non-dual community. It's basically a transcription between him and his client. And throughout that conversation, he takes that person to a non-dual experience. And and you can actually see that. He has a very unique perspective. I spoke to him. Here's what happened.
I had a tough time preparing for this interview, Fred, because it's really confusing. Do I talk about you? Do I talk about you? But then, what's the difference?
Yeah, right. There's just one thing going on, and we actually we don't want to confuse anybody watching this. Please don't confuse what Prem and I are saying with the truth.
Uh, don't listen to us, guys.
Yeah, right.
Listen to us.
What you will get, a word I like to use is what we'll talk about here today will be very truthy, and it'll be quite truth-like. But the truth can't be spoken, so it ain't going to happen through verbally, through this interview or any other.
One thing I would like to tell to audience, and it is a nuanced way to think about stuff. And the analogy that comes to my head is, how the Bruce Lee movie, the Bruce Lee points at the moon, the guy points at the moon, but the imbecile looks at the hand, And I feel that you have thoughts, emotions, you have like hands pointing to other hands, and you have like hands pointing to moon. I feel the entire conversation is almost directed towards trying to find the hand that points to moon. We can never show you the moon. We can only like give you a question where the question redirects the awareness to the truth. And the entire conversation is almost about, okay, and then you become aware of the awareness, and you see where the awareness is getting directed, and the questions will help it flow, and then you like see the truth. And I think that's the context. And I think that's a very good segue to the new book that Fred Davis has written, The Book of Nothing. I love it. It's a book of many, many quotes, questions, no answers, sadly.
No answers. I tell people, come, I mean, if you came for answers, you came to the wrong guy. I got nothing but I do have some very high quality questions, because what we want to do is, rather than give answers, we don't want to live from answers. We want to live from questions. Because answers, the thing about answers is that they may not always be right, but they tend to be very sure.
Yeah, that's so true. That is true. Yeah.
And sureness, I find to be the death of spiritual progress. I'm not sure about anything. As a matter of fact, I don't even have a strong opinion about anything, because, well, part of that is because there's no one here to have one.
There's a lot of clinging to the urges. For example, to define clinging, it's almost like there is something about the urges that just convinces you, because there is like a pleasure payoff, there is like a sadness component for not doing something. You have like these different dynamics, and there's definitely a pleasure or an aversion to something that is like a greater pain, which is why we like
aversion and attraction.
Yeah, aversion and attraction, due to which we end up doing something that in the long term doesn't make much sense. So what? But I still try to ask myself, why are we even clinging to thought?
Well, you got to ask, who is it that's clinging to thought?
Yeah. So then the question becomes,
that's a very legitimate line of inquiry, because let me explain to you and your audience how I see inquiry. Is that the purpose of inquiry is not really to get an answer. The purpose of inquiry is you ask a question that leaves you, that stops the mind, that it just stops the mind. It's not a matter of it. They're ever like, who am I? I mean, awakening has been functioning through this unit for 15 years, but I can't tell you, I know sort of who I am in the sense that I know that it's referred to as the divine and stuff like that, but I don't know what that is. So I don't really know what I am. And the other thing is I don't know what's going on here. I have no idea. And the good news is when I don't know what I am and I don't know what's going on here, there is no possible way that I can tell myself a believable story about what should be going on here. And in the absence of the knowledge of what should be going on here, hell, I'm left with this. That seems to be enough. There is no should. There's only what is. That's because there's this inquiry goes in and it actually flips the switch. The meditation is good prior to, because it just quiets the mind. And what they said in the Christian Bible was be still, or actually just the Bible, that Bible, it goes with all the Abrahamic religions. But I was raised as a Christian, so that comes to mind. But it says, be still and know that I am God. And the be still part is pretty damn hard, and meditation is very helpful with that. But then knowing that I am God is the toughest part. It's the small part, it's the little part. But when people come to me, they're always telling me, Fred, I'm just missing this much. I'm just this much. And it's, and I'm going to wake up really soon. And awakening is right around the corner. And I ask them, so how long you been trying to get to the corner? Well, 50 years. It's the problem is not that meditation is not around the corner. It's just that you can't get to the corner.
Well, yeah. India is pretty famous for that.
And so, but the thing is that when we seek to go elsewhere to discover the truth, then every step on a spiritual teacher's journey is a step away from the truth. Because what is it that's in search of true nature? True nature. So when true nature goes out trying to find true nature, you can see why that might be difficult. Because it's a circle. Mm-hmm. And how long do you think that a dog can chase its tail? It can chase its tail until it just can't chase it anymore. And that's what seekers do. And most give up before they have actually given it their all. If you give it your all, I don't want to say there are no rules to awakening, but the odds of your waking up go from being infinitesimal to very high. Give it your all.
Let me ask you something. I was trying to self-inquire in the thoughts I'm having, because I'm probably saying, I know I want to wake up, but for some reason I'm lying around. So who is lying down? Why? So what is it about these thoughts? I'm just trying to what is it about these thoughts that I'm laying down? And today morning I realized there is the thoughts are certainly colored in a certain way, and I realized I'm the one coloring them. However, the thoughts are fundamentally neutral.
Well, wait a minute. Tell me, since you're the one that colors the thoughts, tell me how you do that. Let's say there's an uncolored thought you come in your way. How do you color it?
I don't feel there's an uncolored thought.
Okay, so then you're not coloring the thoughts. You said you were the one that was covered with it. You were the one that was
interpreting the colors.
What now?
it feels like I was the one interpreting the colors because
Okay, and let me just ask you this, just to be helpful. And right, I'm not trying to game you or anything like that. I'm just trying to be
you can
helpful.
give me, Fred.
Again, so when you tell me that I feel like that I was the one who did that, who is that I? Can you find it? Can you find that one?
Well, I can be it. Can't find it.
You can, yeah, but we're talking about that I. When you say I feel like, that doesn't sound like awakeness speaking to me. That sounds like primness.
Primness, yeah.
There's no prim, but there's primness.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is we want to come to recognize that, like Fred coming to the recognition that there was no Fred. I had that recognition reasonably early. Didn't help me all that much. I said, okay, I'm not this body. But I never checked to see if I'm not this body, then what is it that's here? If everything was to fall away, what would be left? There would still be a wearing.
How do I put it? Even though I am looking, there's a emphasis on I rather than looking, and we identify with I rather than we are identifying with the work. There was something in your book I realized nothing is actually same. Like a human being keeps changing. When they turn, everything keeps changing. There's nothing
When
about.
I eat if the unit here eats a sandwich, then am I going to say, well, there's more Fred here than there used to be now? I mean, if I step on a scale, it'll be it'll say a little bit higher readout, won't
it? Yeah. Yeah.
So what is being weighed is the body, but you can't weigh a Fred.
Yeah.
You can't weigh something that's not here. You can't weigh something that doesn't exist. How tall is Prim?
5'7". But how tall? But how tall is my ego? So does it have a height?
Just looking at this, please. The 5'7", you're talking about that body, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about Prim? Can you find a Prim? If you had to prove to me right now that there is a Prim, could you do that? No, you can't. So you can't prove to me that there is a Prim. And because there's not one. There's a story over there. Like if two people were to walk into the room right now and both of them were to look at that unit, and one was a friend of yours, one of the people was a friend of yours, the other one was a stranger. When the friend of yours looked at that unit, then, well, he'd see a Prim. But the stranger, when the stranger looked at that unit, would he see a Prim?
No.
No. He'd just see a body in a chair, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we came here to investigate, is this strange observation. We have got two people in the same room looking at exactly the same thing. One of them can see a Prim and one of them can't. So I wonder why it is that the one guy can't see a prim. And here's why I think what the reason I think is that he can't see a prim because he didn't bring one with him. Not about right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no story and there's no photo. And the reason he didn't bring one with him is because you hadn't gotten to him yet.
Mm-hmm.
You hadn't trained him. And in the absence of training, no one can see a prim. And I can't see one. Well, I can tell you this, not only can I not see one, there's not one here. The only thing that's here is me.
I really love this conversation, and do check out my Byron Katie video if you don't know who she is. Oh my god, you're missing out. She did something called The Work, and that basically just changed my life. If you liked this video, please like, support me so that I can bring more insightful conversations like this. It's a new channel. It really helps a lot with the algorithm and all that stuff.